Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be using a couple of different sets, the Hug and the Mug. I pulled out the stamps and dies, and I also pulled out the Autumn Splendor cover plate. We didn't end up using those dies. We'll talk about that when we get there. But we did use the stamps and dies for the Treat Yourself stamp set, which has a bunch of different kinds of mugs in it. I've used this one in the past. I like going back to stamp sets that I enjoy using. That's why we purchased them, right? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about fall color combinations. And we're going to touch a little bit on like our styles of card. So first things first, we are using, I like the Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. Copic's blend in the fibers of your paper, so it is good to have a paper that will give it the opportunity to kind of saturate and blend together. I find the 110 a little heavy for that. And then you also want to stamp in any ink that you have that is safe for alcohol markers. This is the Honeybee black, intense black coloring ink, and this works for alcohol markers. It's a good black. You guys know I like a bold black outline. So the first color combination that I'm going to do is my browns. This particular color combination is a little bit more on the warm side. I chose an E55, 57, and 59. They are a family that goes together. A couple of our combinations are like that, and a couple are a little bit different. If you don't like the warmer browns, you could go with more of like an E40 family. So like a 40, 42, 44. Would be good. That's a little bit more on the gray side, but I like the warmer ones for fall. I like the warmer ones, period. So here I'm coloring in like my little cardboard hand warmer. These lines are already drawn there. I am just following along with those. Careful to leave some white space in between for my lightest color. And then once I have this portion of the shading done, because it is a round object, I want there to be center highlight. So then I'm going to go in and add shading from the left and the right hand sides just by doing a little bit of color flicking. This isn't something you necessarily have to do, but I feel like that's where it's going to get its added dimension from, its roundness from, is by adding that in there. I typically like to work from lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest with my markers, but you will see in some of these cases, I do start with my darkest marker, and that's kind of where like either I'm coloring something white or the item is very small. And because you risk with each color application, because we are soaking the paper, you risk it bleeding outside of the lines. And so sometimes it is worth it to go in with my darkest marker, even though I know I'm heavy-handed, and try to show some restraint with it, just so that I don't get the markers bleeding outside of the lines. If that happens, just use your colorless blender to push it back where it needs to go. Or like I have showed other tips and tricks for how to fix that, adding an outline to it, adding a shadow. Those different things can kind of help you out if you do get some color bleeds and you can't clean it all the way up. But so basically, as we're just going to work our way through this, I did the majority of so if I pulled out my browns, I colored everything brown. And then when I pulled out the colors to color my whites, I colored everything with that. And so we'll just work our way through. I chose to do 3 color blends, even though I typically use 4 color blends, because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you're new to coloring. 3 color blends can still give you plenty of depth and dimension, because as I've told you in past videos, you don't have to have all the colors, and that is 100% true. Like you don't need them, I don't need them, we don't need them in order to get good dimension, but you do have to have colors that blend together. That is the beauty of the Copic marker or the alcohol ink style marker, is that they do blend together so beautifully. So you have to have colors that will blend together, or you will be very unhappy with what you're trying to achieve, unless what you're trying to achieve is flat color. If you're trying to achieve flat color, these are still beautiful options. It's just you're not gonna use them the same way the majority of people use them, and that's okay. We can be different. So as far as life goes, we've been busy. You guys know how it is. My birthday is next week. I will probably have a video on my birthday. I'm going to be the big 39, like 39 for real, not like, oh, I'm 39 again. No, 39 for the first time. Which I'm sure my parents are just like, oh my gosh, my baby is 39. So that's got to make them feel like, I'm sure, because I can't believe my baby is 9 months old. And I feel like, where did the time go? So I can't imagine how they feel, seeing as how I am their youngest child. The next Copic combination we're going to do, I prefer the warm grays for fall because there's typically so many warm colors. The cool grays kind of stand out. So I went with a W1, 3, and 5 for coloring my whites. When you're coloring an object white, all you're doing is adding the shadows. So you want to make sure that you do leave some white area. It's going to look super gray when you first do it. It's going to look super gray compared to your neck or your white cardstock. Calm down. It's going to be okay. By the time that we get to adding all the other colors, it will look white. Just make sure that you're not being super heavy-handed with your shadow colors, and that you are leaving a white area. That is a key. If you want an object to look white, you have to leave some white. You just want to add the shadows. And so I used this for all of like my whipped creams, for my lid, for the little label on the kind of like to-go cup, and then for my straw, because I knew I wanted my straw to be striped. This is, if I had been thinking about it, and I wasn't, I would have started with this color combination, because if you try to color your darker colors and then bring a white or a lighter, like a gray color like this into it, you really run the risk of spreading around that darker color if you pick it up into your lightest, what quote unquote white area. So try to do this portion as early in your card or as early in your coloring as possible, just so that you're not risking picking up any of those darker colors. So I should have done this before I did my brown. I didn't. I didn't have any issues, but especially if you're just kind of beginning at doing this style of coloring, you for sure want to do your lightest colors first. Here for this little whipped cream, you guys may have noticed that I am adding dimension that's not there, but really all I'm doing is continuing the little divot that was already drawn on the outside. So I'm just extending that with my markers, and that's just going to help give it more shape. So anyhow, we had Caitlin's 9-month photos yesterday. So somebody had asked me, I think it was Wendy actually, who had asked me on Instagram when I shared her picture. I mean, just brought tears to my eyes, my little baby. She's like, oh, she's all alone in this little field looking at this like little black-eyed Susan. I'll have to share it on the community page so you guys can see it because it was so darling. My sweet girl. But, and then her and Peanut's pictures came out great. There's one, they're both big smiles. Miss Caitlin was not real interested in smiling. She was real interested in looking at the woods until she sneezed, and then she started laughing after she sneezed, and then she got some really great shots of her and her brother and both of them smiling. So originally her photos were supposed to be the week that she was sick and throwing up, so we had to reschedule them. And so we rescheduled them. She asked me if I had a specific area in which I wanted to take the pictures, and there was like waterfalls at this park that I had seen all these pictures of. We got to go back to the card. So for the pink combination, this is going to be the first one that isn't all in the same family, and you can play around with this. I chose more desaturated, so what that means is they're just not as bright as my normal colors, and you can tell that by the way that the numbers start. So this combination is an R83, an RV55, and an RV66. Please remember that when I'm showing them on the screen, you always have the option to pause and write them down. And so because those numbers 8, 5, and 6, what it starts with, those are definitely going to be less bright. They're going to be more on the gray side. And I think typically that's what I tend to look for when I'm looking at more fall colors. Well, I shouldn't say I think that is more common in fall color combinations. I like bright any time of year because I like to do my own thing, and I encourage you to do the same. But these are just some options that maybe you could use if you're interested. I also showed you an RV69, though I didn't choose to use it. But if you're looking for more of a darker pink, you could use just the RV55, 66, and 69, and then that would be a darker color combination that would be along the same line as this one, but I chose to go with the lighter one today. I just felt like it matched with the other colors a little bit better. And then for my mug here, I'm doing the same thing that I had did previously. I'm adding shading to the left and the right hand side and leaving the lightest area in the center. For the handle, because it's coming out, the highlight will be on the rounded part of the handle on the outside. And so that's where I'm leaving my lightest color. So anyway, I'd seen pictures of these waterfalls, and they were at a park that's like 15 minutes from us. So I was like, oh, let's go take pictures by the waterfall. That'd be a really cool background, right? Right. Okay. Except for when we finally got there, it's just an overlook. Like there was a passerby that we talked to, and I had seen on Facebook, like this guy I used to work with, pictures of his kids in this waterfall. And I was like, there has to be a way to get to it. I just thought it would be more accessible. No, turns out Sam just likes to take his kids adventuring. And so he's like, there's different paths down there to it, but you're not going to be able to get a 9-month-old baby down there. And I was like, that's fair. For my orange combination, I actually used a lot of reds. And I think like this burnt orange color is really rather popular this time of year. But I chose reds that were more on like the tomato side versus the red purple side, which is my normal go-to. And so I'm using an R05, an R08, and a YR09. You could definitely shade this with a brown and get some more depth, swap out the YR09 for a E color. And these are brighter, they start with that 0, so there's not as much gray in them. But I'm cool with it. I thought that it matched really well. For the yellows, this is my usual color combination except for this first color. So normally I'm a Y08 and then a YR24 and an E99. This time around I went with a Y17. Again, that's a little bit more desaturated because it doesn't start with that 0. So it's still a bright yellow. It's just not as bright as a Y08. But these are pretty similar. Like I said, you don't need them all. They are more similar. You probably don't need them both. So if you have one or the other, either will work for this color combination, for this kind of golden yellow. And then, you want to shade with your mid-tone and your shadow color. And I think both of them would give you beautiful results. But I happen to own them both, and I know this one is a little bit more desaturated, and that's why I chose this one. So if you're watching this and you don't own a Y17, but you do own a Y08, don't go buy it. Just use the Y08. So then that is done. And then the last thing that I'm going to color with this is not a fall color combination. This is just how I prefer to color my clear objects, is by adding a little bit of blue. And so I'm just going to add some little rounded lines right over top of my other coloring with a B01, and then careful to avoid the brown because I don't want to drag it, with a B quadruple 0. I like to outline my images. This is not something that you have to do by any means. Somebody had made the comment, which was hysterical, when I had said this in another video. I'm like, this is totally optional. And she was like, you say it's totally optional, like the rest of it is mandatory. And I laughed so hard. And it's true. If you're making this card, if you're recreating it, if you're, being inspired by it or whatever, then yeah, the rest of it's mandatory. But if you are not recreating it as I am creating it, then none of it's mandatory. You can do what you want. Do with it how you like. I'm just trying to show you how I did this one and hopefully inspiring you to do your own. So once I outlined everything, I did go back in with a white gel pen and add some more highlights. A lot of times I will draw designs and stuff on the cards with my white gel pen. I chose not to do that this time because I knew my background was going to be busier, or I thought it was. Turns out that wasn't true. But anywho, once I'm done with that, I am going to die cut out all of my little cups so that I can start building my card. And then here is where we're going to talk about things that I don't like. So this Autumn Splendor background plate I love. I think it's beautiful and it's intricate and I love it. And I wanted to use it. I've used it in the past. I've used it with other cards. And I will use it in the future. I actually have a whole other plan for this now that I couldn't use it here. But I tried to put it, this is the Desert Storm Craft cardstock. That's also by Nina. And so I thought, well, I'll put it tone on tone so it won't be as busy. And I didn't like it. So then I tried to put it on the white. I didn't like that. And ultimately, I ended up putting it on a mustard colored cardstock. And I didn't like it then either. Sometimes it's okay to let it go. This is the whole completed card. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put some clear shimmers on it. I don't love it, but I know that I need to walk away. That I cannot sit here and just keep carrying on with it. And so you'll notice I didn't even trim my mug off. It's hanging off the side of my card. And I was like, I'm just going to leave it and I'll come back to it. And I left my card sit on my desk for overnight. And I looked at it the next morning and I was like, nah, fam, we still ain't friends. And so I took it apart. And sometimes you guys know that I tell you like everything is fixable. And I firmly believe that. And sometimes fixing something to make yourself happy with it means deconstructing it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here. So here I'm not wasting these gems. You know how expensive these gems are? I'm kidding. They're actually not that pricey, but I'm not wasting them nonetheless. So I was trying to take off the sentiment. It didn't work. And now I'm going to start bending back my cardstock. I'm prepared to cut it if I have to. That's why I have my scissors in my hand. But I'm just going to kind of bend it all around the edges. I'm not going to force any of the pieces up. I'm just going to bend the background paper, to see how much of it I can get off. If I cannot get it off cleanly, if something is starting to rip on the main image, the background image I know is going to rip. I've glued one to the other. And so here it did pull up some of the cover plate, but I'm fine with it. My coffee cups are still intact, and that is my focal point. I am a clean and simple card maker. I know that about myself. And every once in a while, I kind of venture out to other things that I would like to try. And sometimes that works out for me and sometimes it does not. And in this case, it did not. And that's okay because I tried, I learned something. And now I also know how I can make it work for me so that I will be happy with it. Here, I did color in my white edges. I used the E55 and then I went over it with the W3 to match this color craft cardstock. So if you have a Desert Storm, that's the recipe for that. But a lot of knowing your own style is trying it and seeing if it works for you, whatever the thing is. You know, maybe it's layering, maybe it's mixed media, maybe it's coloring, maybe it's watercolor. Whatever it is for you, you're not going to find it unless you try a bunch of different things. So I know that I like a clean and simple card. I know that. I know I like bold coloring, that I like dimensional images, but that my background, unless it's part of a scene card, I don't like busy. And I know that. and that's my style. And a lot of you say, like, when I see a card, before I even know, like, before I even look at the name or whatever, I can tell that it's yours because, you know, it's got bright colors, it's got the bold black outline, it's got this, that, or whatever. My style is recognizable as a Kelly Taylor card. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, you know, in order to grow and to move, you have to try different things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have a style that's your style, embrace that. Do it. So now I've laid these out after I've put my shadow down, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment, and then I'm going to pop these up on foam. And that's going to be the whole card. And I'm going to be so much happier with it. So anyway, for these pictures, we ended up not being able to go down by the waterfall because it was like an overlook. Which is okay. It was no big deal. Because like we had some pictures taken in the woods. She had like a little stool and a little basket for Caitlin. And then we took some pictures, like in a grassy field with some flowers behind her. And we got all the pictures that we could want. Oh, that's what I was telling you. Wendy asked me, like, do you just take her to get professional pictures every, you know, X amount of time? No, we bought a milestone package. So we bought a milestone package that included maternity photos, newborn photos, 3, 6, and 9 months. So this was our last one, and I need to book her first birthday photos. And then after that, that's what I did for Peanut when he was a baby. And then after that, we'll be done with the family photos until we're getting them done, you know, once every X amount of years. That however often we choose. So yeah, I'm super excited because the little sneak peeks are adorable and I'm super happy with them. So that is it. This is the whole card. Constructed, deconstructed, reconstructed, and I'm so much happier with it. I hope that you guys are inspired by these color combinations as we're heading into the new season. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.